Right. I apologize. I think we need a better view. I don't even know if I have anybody here yet. We've only been live for a little bit, so I don't even know if anybody can hear me. And I won't stay live long if I don't get anybody on here. Excuse me. There's two. Hey, Derek, how are you? Hey, Sarah. All right, so, oh, there's three. Yay. All right, welcome everybody. Sarah, if you can take over doing some moderating, that would be really cool because I'm not going to really have time to answer a lot of questions. I did a video on TikTok not too long ago that went semi-viral, 500,000 views or something like that, in regards to what is in your driveway and what is in my driveway anyway. And I went through and I did a little 3-minute video on just the kind of herbs that are in my driveway. And I thought maybe we could go into some more detail about that. You know, we could put the tripod down a little lower, get down on the ground and discuss what we're finding here. And then I want to go over, and I also want to go over and point out there's something about wild lettuce that a lot of people don't know. And I just happened to go through and I was looking, and here I found a minimum of 2 different species of wild lettuce. One wasn't in my driveway, so that's kind of a one of them wasn't in my driveway, but one of them is in my driveway, and the other one's back in the yard. And when I do the video in regards to what's in my yard, that'll be covered too. Wild lettuce, if you give it an opportunity, will spread pretty well, and you'll get a lot of it, and it's really a handy herb to have. So, but there's a lot of things about it that a lot of people don't know. Let's see if I have my tools that I'll need. All right. Now again, I live out in the middle of everywhere. Can everybody hear me? Can anybody hear me? Real quick. Just harvested about 5 pounds of wild lettuce yesterday. Just once it dries, it'll be way less. Yeah, don't forget to hit that like button. Okay. Not been able to watch it yet, but plan to. Okay, good. I have what I've done is I've set up a microphone this time, so maybe we can eliminate a lot of the wind. Are you hearing a lot of the wind? Now, because we live out in the middle of nowhere, we get a lot of traffic through here. My allergies are acting up a little bit, and I didn't necessarily take any allergy drops today, so you might get me caught. I'm a little congested, but that's just because I just didn't take my allergy drops. So good, because they got that foam filter on there. Can't hear the wind. Good. I guess we can start with when I initially did it. We normally start with the most obvious plant, especially at this time of the year, the dandelion. So when it comes to dandelion, and before anybody says anything, yes, I know it's in my driveway, right? I'm not out here changing oil or having chemical spills in my driveway. What I do in the driveway is we make sure that we don't do any of that stuff. So for the most part, we keep it chemical free. But if you have chemicals in your driveway, I mean, common sense dictates don't use it. Just saying. All right. Everybody see okay? We down a little bit lower. Got a dandelion over here. Gotta find the right dandelion so we're in the right thing. Oh, come on. All right. So, even though it's in the driveway, you can use the same if it's in your yard. I mean, realistically, the dandelion's a dandelion. It doesn't matter where it grows. But you really want to make sure that you're getting down to get to the roots. If all the rest of this is good too, don't get me wrong. But the further you dig down, the more the root you get, the more the plant you get. I'm probably not going to get the root. Our driveway is pretty soft underneath the gravel. Nope. You don't want to do that. I didn't bring a root shovel or a trowel out here, so I can see the root. I did go get some dandelion. I'm just kind of trying to show you. You can pick it out. I can't apparently dig it out, but you can dig it out. And Grab the whole thing. Now, the leaves, all of this stuff here, all of this stuff you see here, it's all usable. It's all edible. The leaves are really edible. The stems are bitter. You can save those and dry those, and they have the lacticarium in it. You can also save the flowers. By lacticarium, I mean this. When you cut one open, if you look there, I don't know how well, I can't see very well because I'm outside. We're not in a studio. Alright, there it is. There. You can see that white sap that's right there. Maybe you can. That white sap is lacticarium, and it's the same thing that's in wild lettuce. You can use it topically, you can eat it. I can't read your questions, so if you have a lot of questions, I'm not going to be able to answer them. I can't read them. I'm outside, and my screen just reflects too bad. So maybe Sarah can answer it. You can use them like it's for pain relief. So like I have a little wound, just dab it on the wound just like that, and use it just like that. Even from a dandelion, it's still the pain reliever. It may not be quite as much as what you would find in wild lettuce, but some is better than none. I'm not a huge fan of extracting, so when people ask me how do I extract it, I don't know. Go to another website and check that out. I don't do that. I use the whole herb. I don't use just the lacticarium. I think that's doing a disservice to the plant, doing a disservice to the body. So when it comes to dandelions, they're really nutritious. Every part of this is edible. The flowers you can make into a tea. You can grind them up. You can use them for lotions. They can be used topically. The uses are so varied. I could do an entire series just on one herb and how to use it. So, I mean, I suppose I could at some point, but I gotta finish some of the other series I've started first before I start this. Now, this lacticarium goes all the way through. Can you see it there in the roots? All this white sap that's in there, that's the lacticarium that's leaking out. This is what makes your plant bitter when you eat it. And as a bitter, it's good for your digestive system. So if you have stuff that's bitter, it actually gets bile flowing more freely, and which leads to a little bit better digestion. So you can dry these. You can hang them to dry them, like the shoestring method. I've done videos about that. You can put them in a dehydrator. You can just throw them in the oven. Don't turn it on. Just throw them in the oven, and you know, if you've turned it on for a little bit, and then you just turn it off. Put these in there and just leave it set, right? It'll keep it, especially if you have a gas stove. If you have a gas stove, the pilot light's going, it'll usually have some heat. So yeah, these are really easy to use, and they're really easy to pick. And as you can see, I mean, if you look into the yard, let's see if I can see now. I can kind of see. I don't know if you can see all the yellow. There's all the yellow over there, all that yellow there. So there's dandelions everywhere, and they, you know, if you get them the younger they are, the less bitter they are. So if you get them before the flowers pop, they're going to be fairly sweet. But I mean, it's still a lettuce. They're part of the lettuce family. And there's another plant that grows close to the dandelion, and this is part of what we're going to discuss tonight. And I'm getting cold, so I don't know how long I'm going to last tonight. We'll try it. This is called chicory. The leaves are very similar. These are really edible right now too. This can be eaten just like a lettuce. If you look at the leaf of a chicory and the leaf of a dandelion, they're very similar in structure. Okay, so if you look down here at the base of the chicory, you see how it has the little serrated part? Well, the dandelion does too. These two are very closely related. So even though the chicory they have a button-sized purple flower that comes out at the end, and you'll see them like on the side of the road. You know, they're pretty plentiful. The root is often used, but the whole plant is edible. So you can eat the leaves, and you get a lot of the properties from the leaves. They're loaded with nutrients, just like dandelion is. So you could do a dandelion, chicory, plantain salad if you really wanted to, and it would probably be better for you than just getting a normal salad. So, I mean, you know, because of all the nutrients and the anti-inflammatory properties. Now, as a quick side note, if you do use regular lettuce also has lacticarium in it as well. So it may not have as much lacticarium, but it does still contain lacticarium. And that's why sometimes if you eat a piece of lettuce, it's kind of bitter. That's what that is. So lettuce in and of itself, the lettuce family, is anti-inflammatory, so it has anti-inflammatory properties, and they're really good for you. But for the most part, if you want to get them, you want to get the ones that are more wild, I guess I would say. So those two look alike. They're part of the same family. For the most part, when it comes to chicory, You want to use the root. I'm not a big fan of roasted chicory root. Now, roasted chicory root is used as a coffee substitute, and many coffees that you have will have roasted chicory in it as a filler. Not that that's a bad thing. I mean, coffee's good for you, but so is the chicory. Chicory helps to balance your blood. It's a diuretic. It's a detox herb, so it'll help to gently detox your body. It'll flush out excess fluid in your body without removing the electrolytes. Well, actually, it'll actually add more electrolytes to your body, electrolytes and vitamins, and take out more of the bad stuff. It kind of binds with it on a molecular level. And you can make a tea out of it. I prefer dried raw chicory root, and it's kind of hard to find, and it's significantly more expensive than roasted chicory. Roasted chicory is pretty plentiful. If you want to roast it yourself, you cut it up into pieces. And I don't think I'm going to be able to get a root out. I don't know if I brought a root shovel up here. If I brought a root shovel up here, I might try to dig one up. But I don't want to interrupt the live, and people don't want to wait, man. People have no attention span, so I can't do it. I would dig up a root and show you. They're very similar to a dandelion root. The chicory root will be long. It'll cut just like a carrot. It has the same consistency as a carrot. Now the plant will live about 6 to 12 years, depending on how good the soil is. But the older it gets, the harder that root is going to get. So if you wait 6 years to get your root, it's going to be like a piece of wood. It'll still have some of the properties, but a lot of that stuff will go away. Chicory also has inulin in it, which your body will absorb similar to insulin, as does dandelion. Dandelion root also has that. So that is also a thing. These are all easy to harvest. You can dig them out. Let me check and see if I have the root shovel up here real quick. I guess I don't, but so we did the chicory. Now we have a couple of different types of plantain, and they're both right here together. Let's see if I can get this to point down a bit. So we have the narrow leaf plantain that's here, and it's right next to, as you can see, I didn't really have to stretch that far, broadleaf plantain. Now these are both still kind of small, they're just fresh growing. Here's your narrow leaf plantain. It'll be narrow and thin, obviously, hence the name. It'll have these veins that run through it. You can see those veins pretty clearly. You should be able to. Here's your broadleaf plantain, also called Plantago major. The other one's Plantago, I don't know, whatever narrow leaf translates to in Latin. But there's your, and if you look at them together, they're actually very similar looking. Just one's kind of rounder, has more of a round shape versus the more spearhead shape. Plantain is an anti-inflammatory. It's a pain reliever. I always use the term plantain for pain, if you can remember that. There have been times that we've been at like cross-country meets for my son or something like that, and somebody's been stung, and I've hold on, let me get the sun out of my way. There we go. Somebody got stung, so I just grabbed some plantain, told them to chew it up and put it on a sting, and it works really well to get as a pain reliever. You can put it on a cut, you can put it on a rash. You can eat it plain. It's good for like ulcers. It's good for your digestion. It's a prebiotic, so it has a lot of very simple compounds that are easily broken down to turn by the good gut flora in your gut, so it can be easily digested and leave good gut stuff for your. There's a cat in our driveway. Good gut stuff for digestion. Now this is all really fairly close. When I went over through that video, there was a bunch of herbs that I missed, and we'll cover some of those tonight. But I'm going to make sure to keep this at just about an hour because I don't want to lose too many people. I don't get nearly as many live views here on YouTube as I do through the others. So it's a lot of time. This one here is the Creeping Charlie. You can see these leaves are kind of clam shaped-ish. Got that clam shape with the riffly edge, the purple flowers. This is part of the mint family. It's really good for digestive issues. If you have pain, inflammation, you can put it directly on a wound. When it's this age, it's not quite as minty as mint, but you get that mint taste to it, and it's not bad. The flowers can be used as well. They're kind of a trumpet shaped, if you look there. Hi everybody. I don't have time to answer any questions. I can't see anything. So if I don't see your question, I'm sorry. I am trying to make sure I get through this live and not get all distracted. So I don't have anybody to keep me on target, and I can't read the screen to do it. So this everything above ground you can use for this creeping Charlie. So this stuff, it's called ground ivy for a reason. It'll grow forever, and you can get a piece 4 or 5 feet long if you have a really good soil conditions, because it'll just keep growing roots off the end tendrils as it goes, and it'll just keep going. Um, if you just want to do the leaves, it's pretty easy to do that too. You could take them and just strip them off, and then the leaves are here and ready to use. It's really that easy to do. But I'll advise you, if you do just the leaves, you're gonna lose a lot of material, because there's a lot of that property still in your stems. But the more whole you keep it, the more of the compounds are going to stay in it until you're ready to actually grind it up and use it. Excuse me, sorry. I guess I needed it for my digestion. How I normally use it, if I'm going to use something like this, is I'll keep it whole as much as possible, like keep them in chunks maybe that big, and then when it comes time for me to use them, I'll put them in the grinder and grind them up, and then you can definitely smell the difference when you go to use it. So that's the creeping Charlie. It's really plentiful. I mean, if you have it in your yard, it'll go a long ways, and it's easy to come back. Don't worry about over picking it, because if it's already taken hold, you can grab as much as you want. Eventually, it's going to come back next year. Some of those rhizomes and stuff are going to stay in the ground. All right, moving on. What's another good one I see here? We have some white clover. I don't have any clover flowers to show you, but white clover is also kind of viney. You can see those are usually the three shaped, and they're round. There's another one that doesn't have they have heart shaped, and that's not a clover. That's a cinquefoil. It's a different plant entirely, but we don't have any in the driveway. We have that back in the backyard. So white clover is anti-inflammatory as well. It's good for your digestion. It's good for if you have issues with your throat and lungs. It can help relieve lung conditions if you have sore throat. It can help break a fever, so it's a really good herb to have. And if you have white clover in your yard, you'll see it in huge patches, and you can harvest it the same way. Just grab a handful of it and dry it as much as you want. Keep it as whole as possible, and then when you're ready to use it as a tea, you can just throw it in a grinder or whatever, grind it up, and you have your tea. Looking around to see, I didn't really plan this out. I did a live yesterday, and I'm still kind of tired from that. So this is kind of I already did a what's in my driveway video, so this is just an extension of that, just a little bit more detailed. We're also going to cover a little bit later. We're also still going to cover. I'm going to show some similarities with wild lettuce, and I'm going to show you the wild lettuce that I found in my driveway. One type of species of wild lettuce. Don't be under the assumption it's only one species of wild lettuce. There's like a dozen species of them, and they all have very similar properties. The prickly lettuce seems to have the most of the lactocarium, but let's be real, you just eat a little bit more of the other and it's fine. I'm just saying, it's just my opinion. What do I know? I'm just the herb guy. Come up a little bit further into the driveway. We're going to talk about some good stuff. I went ahead and got some buckets. I'm going to do a quick tease. I can tell you that, where'd it go? That the wild lettuce is over there. It's right over there. I'm moving really fast so you can't really look at it, but there's wild lettuce in there, I promise. What we have over here, that's yellow dock, sometimes called curly dock, and if you looked really close, you probably saw the wild lettuce leaf that was there as well. There was a wild lettuce growing right up in there. I keep teasing you with it. Alright, so that one we can talk about now. Went and filled up a bucket with water, cleaned up some herbs. Here's your yellow dock. The leaves are edible. The smaller these leaves are, the more edible and nutrient dense they are. The bigger they get, this is about as large as you're going to want it to get, which is roughly the size of kale, right? It's going to have more nutritional value than kale. It doesn't taste bad. It's kind of bland, but you can add it to your salad. This would be a good filler for a salad. If I were wanting to do a salad tonight, I'd been picking this stuff all day. But the most important part of this plant is here. Here's your roots. You see these roots, they look just like carrots, and they will cut just like a carrot. They'll cook like a carrot. You can eat them raw. They're not as good raw, so. In China, these are sold as carrot substitutes. These have inulin in them as well. The difference between roots like this and burdock and chicory is versus carrots is they have more inulin versus sugar. Carrots have more of a natural sugar in them, or they have more sugar in them than burdocks do, or the burdock and the yellow dock do. Again, with these plants, the older they are, the more bitter they are, and you get the roots when they're a little bit smaller. Cut off the smaller shoots, they won't be quite so bitter. But they're not as sweet as a carrot, right? They're loaded with inulin. Your body will absorb the inulin just as if it were insulin. I've heard people say that that's not true, but I've actually looked it up. If you look it up in the science, that it does. Your body will absorb it just like it does insulin. You can also save it and make it into a tincture. You can powder them up and turn them into capsules and take them as capsules. So they're really gentle for your body. They're loaded with prebiotics as well, so they will help your digestive system. How did we get down to 3 people? My goodness. Is it choppy or something? Is it that boring? Am I that dry? More of the root. And cut it down the middle. I'm not a huge fan of eating yellow dock, but you know, it's not bad. If I had to either eat this or starve, I'd probably, you know, obviously I'm going to eat it. So I grabbed a couple of those. There's a better, younger root. It's going to be a little bit fresher. You see how there's a yellow dock too. This one's only about a year old. This was probably just started like last fall or something. And it's going to be significantly like that last one was a bit bitter. Yeah, this one's not nearly as bitter. Actually, it tastes like a carrot, but it's not bad. And it's kind of flexible. Hi guys, glad you're here. Alright, so you can cut them up, you can dice them up, you can dry them, you can bake them, you can whatever. The options are fairly unlimited. In China, they're used as a substitute for carrots, so, you know. They grow more plentiful than carrots too, so it'd probably be a lot easier to grow. And not to mention, you can't eat carrot leaves, but you can eat these leaves. These leaves are edible. The stems you can cook like you would asparagus. So you can cut off the leaves and have your salad, take the stems, cut them up into, you know, smaller sections, like you would a green bean or something. See, it almost looks like celery. Cut it up like you would your green beans or your asparagus and eat them just like that. How old should they be before harvest on the burdock? Burdock, you want to get before 3 years. Anything before 3 years, to be fair. Anything before 3 years. By that, I mean, if you wait after 3 years, it'll be bitter. It'll still have some of the properties, but it'll be hard to cut. It'll be hard to process. It'll be hard to use. So it will not. Yeah, anything before 3. First, I would, if it were me and I were growing them like commercially and I was just trying to sell them for people, I would probably only let them go for 2 years. I would do 2-year plants. So plant them one season, and then the next season plant, and then the following season harvest, and then plant, and then I'd have my rotating crops that way. But I think that would probably be the way I would go about doing burdock. Because 2 years would give it enough time to get big and bulky enough to be usable. Oh yeah, burdock will self-seed, all right. And you can feed them to your horses and they will self-seed. You can feed them to your livestock and they will definitely self-seed. The seed is that ball, that big ball of bristles that, you know, you'll sometimes see in your dog's tail, or it'll get caught in your sock or something. It's that big ball, and every one of those little bristles is actually a seed. Now, there's something that most of you guys that follow, you already know this, but when it comes to those seeds, that seed was the inspiration for Velcro. That was the reason why Velcro was made, was because some engineer saw that on his dog's tail. He thought, wow, that sticks really well. He got it back. He looked at it under really close examination, and he discovered that it that was what made, you know, he created Velcro after that. So that was a little bit of history you may not know. Oh boy, it looks like we have. Okay, so we're going to be able to talk about a few different species of wild lettuce today. Now that I'm looking, I see another one over here that's a little bit different. We have 4 of the species on the property, but I don't have all of them here. But some of these spread by seed. They'll spread just like a dandelion. Now the wild lettuce will have a flower that looks almost exactly like a dandelion, but they don't come until later in the season. So you'll see them maybe late May when they'll start to flower. They get big enough, they'll start flowering. Um, but it won't be just those. So don't look for just the wild lettuce if you're looking for pain relief. And how do you use them? You eat them. You know, you eat them like your food. You can either put them in your food. You can make them into capsules. You can make them into a tea. You can turn them into an extract. I mean, the options are virtually unlimited. So, oh hey, there's another one we're going to talk about. Good. So, this really isn't that simple. In regards to deadly lookalikes, no, there's no deadly lookalikes to dandelion or chicory or any of those, right? All of those in the Crispus family, they're not only nutritious and medicinal, they're anti-inflammatory, they'll help detox your body, which is the exact opposite of being poisonous. Just saying. So, when it comes to let's see, we talked about the yellow dock. And try not to get too sidetracked. Okay, so we have another one here. It's called Philadelphia fleabane, or fleabane in general. It has kind of these spear-shaped leaves. They'll get about 4 feet tall. They're very plentiful too. They'll get, they get real tall. They have a little tiny daisy-looking flower that I call them. They look like eyelashes. So the petals of the flower will be very small and they look like eyelashes. These can be used. I mean, they're edible too. They have a lot of, like nutritional value. So they have vitamins A and some B complex and C and stuff. You don't want to eat too much of them. You don't want to eat them a lot because too much of them can be a little hard on your liver. They have a lot of alkaloids in them. But you can add them to a salad or something. It's not going to hurt you. Native Americans used it for epilepsy. Native American peoples used this plant, fleabane, used it for epilepsy, for seizures. They used it for menstruation, excess menstruation. So if a woman was bleeding too much, bleeding is normal during menstruation, but too excessive bleeding is not good. So, so it can be used topically as well, but you take it internally, it'll act like that as well. So you got to be careful. You don't want to use it for like blood thinners or stuff like that. It's supposed to be good for sore throat. It's supposed to be good for lung conditions. So if you have deeper lung conditions, you have pneumonia or a cold that's really bad, you can use it for that. Doesn't have to be. Fleabane is fleabane. Here, bane, there, bane, everywhere, bane, bane. It's a fleabane. It's all part of the same thing. Don't let people do that to you because you're going to say, well, I have curly dock, but I don't have yellow dock. Okay. they're so close they're so close by genetically that there really isn't any difference. So you're going to have your broadleaf fleabane, you're going to have your narrowleaf fleabane, you're going to have your Philadelphia fleabane. There's like 4 different varieties of fleabane just around here, and they all grow at different times of the year. So some of them will come in, like this one here, the Philadelphia is coming in a little bit early. A little bit later, it's going to be the broadleaf that'll come out, and it'll start blooming. And then a little bit after that, you'll see some of the narrowleaf fleabane, which is a little bit smaller. The plant isn't quite as big, but they all share the same properties. So, and if you want to harvest them, pretty simple. Pick everything above the ground. If you get them at this stage, it's when they're the best. But because if you wait until later, they're going to be very hard and stringy. You save it at this stage. Just by pulling up that little bit, I was able to get these strings. And you can just take them and you can dry them like this. You can throw them just like this in your dehydrator. You're going to have to leave them in there a little bit longer, right? Because you have your stems, which are very crisp and wet. So they're going to hold moisture. You need to leave them in there a little bit longer. You need to make sure they're very dry. You're only going to want about 40% of your weight. You're going to do it by weight. If you weigh it out and you have 100 grams, you're going to want 40 grams, give or take, left. At least half, but you really you get about 60%. You're going to lose about 60% of the water in this, and it'll still work as a tea. It'll still reconstitute. It just it'll be drier and it'll be a lot smaller and a lot easier for you to deal with. These plants will grow. I mean, this is all just off of one plant. All of this here, minus the dandelion, all of this here is just all from one plant. So, and we've got a ton of them through here. They're everywhere. Fleabane, it does not have any problems at all propagating. So, so these are pretty handy to have. You can use them topically. If you look at how small they are, and you can put them directly on a wound. You could use them as a poultice, and then you'd wrap it with, if you're being very crafty, you could even wrap them with the yellow dock leaves and then tie them with some grass, and then you have a poultice that you put directly onto a wound that you tied on. It's all natural. Don't get much more natural than that. And that's if you're out and about. You can't. If you have a comfrey leaf, it'd be even better to do that with. So this isn't in the driveway. It's further down the driveway, but we're not going to talk about it later. We're going to talk about it right now. There's purple dead nettle. Everybody's talking about it right now. This plant is everywhere. This is an anti-inflammatory. It's good for your digestion. It's good for sore throat. It'll help break a fever. This plant is edible, so you can add it to your salads as well. It's not too bad tasting. I mean, I'm not a huge fan, but I'll eat it. Most people say, well, eat it then. Okay, so I ate it. You eat one too. Go ahead. Tastes kind of grassy to me, so as far as flavor goes. This is the part you want to save. You can obviously pick the whole stem, but this is the part that's going to be used later. When you go to grind it up, I mean, if you get the stem, it just gives you more volume. And again, the stem does contain the properties. Purple dead nettle grows fairly prolifically. You can use the roots too, but be advised, there's not many of them. So, yeah, all the fleabane have the same. All the fleabane have the same properties. Yeah. So, there's where you have your fleabane. Or, I'm sorry, purple dead nettle. This is also sometimes confused with heel-all because they look very similar. When heel-all pops, the purple dead nettle is one of the first to pop. The heel-all comes along a little bit later, so you don't usually see the heel-all until probably June or so when the heel-all will stop popping. It'll stay that way through late July. What do we have? What else do we have here? I do want to talk about one that everybody has asked me about. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people have asked me about, and I didn't get a chance to discuss. I know it's over here. Taking the back side to the. Sorry. Oh, there she be. All right, I'm gonna go grab a leaf. It's kind of messy over there, so I'm not gonna show you. All right, are you ready? This is one of my all-time favorite plants. They get really big. One of the best anti-inflammatory plants in the world. This is comfrey. Oh crap! This is mullein leaf. It's one of my favorites, and I couldn't remember. I had a brain fart. Listen. It's very hairy. You can kind of see the hairs there. See them? Mullein is one of the best anti-inflammatory herbs in the world. This is one of the few herbs. This is one of the herbs. This is an herb that they use to treat tuberculosis. This is used across the world. Prior to 2020, tuberculosis was killing about 3 to 5 million people a year. It was considered a pandemic. And strangely enough, somehow or another, something came and there was a bunch of cures, and there was only 1.6 million people last year that died from tuberculosis, so I guess that's a good thing. But this plant here is known to be incredibly antimicrobial. It'll kill viruses and bacteria. You can use it externally, you can use it internally, you can put it on a wound, you can eat it, though I don't like it, so no, I'm not going to. When you dry this plant and you go to try to use it, the plant itself will get really tall. They'll get about 4, 5, 6, 8 feet tall. It just depends on how good the soil is. And they have like a big string of yellow flowers at the very top, right? And those flowers, those are the seed pods. It'll turn into seed pods. And they're little tiny seeds. And when mullein spreads, it spreads. But it's a very fragile plant. So if you damage one too early, you'll kill the whole thing. But mullein can be harvested the same way. Once you dry this, these little hairs, the cilia on this, are going to fall off. Now for me, they're irritating. They will get into my, like in the nook of my elbows or in where my skin is, and it'll cause irritation. So be advised, if you go to process this plant, it could do the same for you. If you process it and you realize, or you notice that if you go to process it and you notice that that you start itching a lot, that's the mullein. It's not an allergic reaction. It's just that's the mullein's defense mechanism. And this plant you could also do the same thing with. If you have something sore or whatever, you could wrap it around a wound, and it'll help to keep the inflammation down. It'll help stop bleeding a little bit. It's not as good as yarrow for that, but it's not bad. This plant, you can turn it into a tea, you can make it into a capsule. It's the same thing. These are all the same thing. Don't let people try to convince you that this stuff is super complicated, because it really isn't. Hey, how are you, Michael? This stuff isn't complicated, and the reason why I do what I do is I try to keep it simple, right, and make it simple so everybody can understand it. Because this isn't supposed to be something we're all supposed to be guessing about, right? We should all know this anyway. This kind of stuff, excuse me, should be taught in schools. We should be teaching this stuff in schools and letting our kids know from the very start. You know, why do you? Anyway, I'm not going to go that route tonight. So we talked about the mullein. Mullein's not bad. It's a good herb to use. It you can store it. It'll get very very fluffy. So you know, use like a half a gallon jar if you're going to harvest any, and you won't necessarily get as much as you think you have, even if you pack it in there really tight. Even if you have a half a gallon, um, it's maybe going to be 3/4 of a pound. It won't be a full pound. So if you have a big gallon jug, you want to fill it up. That's good. This isn't a bad herb to have really. It's really easy to dry too. If you just hang it upside down, hang the whole plant upside down in a nice place where it has a lot of moisture, so it can airflow, so it can get the water out of it. It'll dry up really nice. But again, it'll get very very dusty when you go to process it. So just be advised that's a thing. See, what else do we want to talk about? I found quite a few. Let's go dig deeper into the driveway. Forget-me-nots over here haven't come out yet. We have forget-me-nots, and if you have forget-me-nots in your driveway, they are beneficial for a lot of things too. They're good for your lungs. They'll also break a fever. There's one we have in our driveway. Get you close enough to see it. Oh wow. Look at these really massive dandelion flowers. Look how big those are. That's pretty cool, you say? Just a couple of those would make a nice tea. Those are massive. All right, I digress. Here's another plant that just happens to be in our yard, in our driveway. This here, at the very end of the driveway. Red raspberry. Raspberry leaf, red raspberry leaf. These are probably black raspberries, but that's okay. They still share the same properties. Black raspberries, the leaves themselves are really good for female type issues. So they'll help strengthen the uterus. They can clean out, they can help with menstruation. They can clean out that whole area and strengthen it and tone it and get it back to normal. It does have some phytoestrogen in it. So if you're a dude and you like raspberry tea, just be advised, if you drink too much of it, your body will absorb the phytoestrogen just like it's estrogen, which is going to be counterproductive to trying to get a testosterone in your body. I'm just saying. So, but you harvest just the leaves. The leaves themselves, I mean, you got to be careful on the back side of these. They will have some smaller thorns. When they're small and green, light green like this, they're not so bad. But when the plant gets a lot bigger, those thorns are going to get pretty bad, and you'll have to try to take that off. Ooh, do you see what I see? Here's another great herb. Right. Yep. Is it? Sure is. Pretty sure that's cleaver's herb. Feels like it. It's got the square stem. Cleavers will have a square stem. This will have the little balls that come off. The little balls that have the bristles that stick on your socks and stuff. So this is a good herb too. This is a good lung herb. It's kind of hard to harvest. You gotta have to have the whole thing. If you try to just do cleaver's leaf, you're going to be wasting your time and spinning your wheels. So, but it's a good herb to have. It'll help break a fever. It's good for lung stuff. Most of the herbs you find in your yard are good for your lungs. They'll help clean out your lungs. They'll help clean out your bronchioles. They'll keep everything toned and working better. Especially if you have things like bronchitis, or if you have asthma or lung issues, they will help tone that and make them less of an issue, if that makes sense. So, and you'll notice cleavers too has bristles on it. So when you go to feel it, it'll stick to things. Like it sticks to things. That's how you know it's cleavers. If it's already sticky like that, you can see that it's actually pulling my sweatshirt. So cleavers is a good herb to have. It'll grow plentiful, and you'll get some of these vines will get 10-12 feet long. They're not very thick though. So just Another one we happen to have in our driveway. It probably shouldn't be in our driveway. It's a tree. About 4 years ago, we had a slippery elm tree that had gone mast. By going mast means it had gone to seed, and then the very next year it died. The American elm and the slippery elm will have leaves that look like this. Do you see how the leaves are kind of serrated along the edges here? Oops, they're serrated along the edges here. And the difference between the slippery elm and the American elm, you can hear it. Maybe. Let's see. I know you can hear that. The slippery elm, the leaves are going to have that type of feeling. Now, slippery elm is really good for your lungs. Slippery elm is one of the main ingredients for the Easiac compound, or the Easiac drug that I talked about earlier. It's a good herb to have just in general. It's good for your digestion. It's loaded with prebiotics. It has mucilage, so it'll help with like sore throats and stuff like that. It's a great herb to have like during cold and flu season. It's a great herb to have also during allergy season because it can help to eliminate a lot of those issues. You can use the leaves, but for the most part, the inner bark is what you'd want to get. So you get the tree that's maybe been cut down and harvest a bunch of the bark off of it, and then scrape the inner bark out. And that inner bark is the best part. Just keep scraping until you get to the brown part, right? Once you get to the brown part, it's no longer the inner bark, and then you just keep moving. So you'll get surprisingly more than you think you would. Here's slippery elm. All right, the other one that we have here that looks a lot like the fleabane right now. Yeah, you can kind of see it. It looks a lot like the fleabane, but it is not. We happen to get a few of these. It's the black-eyed Susans. These are part of the Echinacea family. This is an immunomodulating herb. What by that I mean is this modulates your immune system. It doesn't it doesn't necessarily just boost it. If your immune system is low, it'll help bring it up to speed. If your immune system is too high and overactive, and like in the case of allergies, it will, or other types of conditions like that, it will bring the histamines and stuff down. It'll balance your immune system. This is a great overall herb. The leaves are good to use. You can use the flowers. You can use the leaves and flowers. I don't recommend using the stems because they get hard like that. But if you have any seeds left over at the end of the season, you're going to end up with a lot of black-eyed Susans. Because once those seeds get loose, like, oops, I guess it got loose. Once the seeds get loose, then you're going to end up with lots of black-eyed Susans where you don't want them to. Oh no, in our driveway. I'm just saying. All right, so we are getting kind of low or later in the night. We've gone through everything that I've seen here. We are going to get to the wild lettuce part. I am not going to ramble and get off topic. So what do you guys think? We're going to get to the wild lettuce. I'm going to show you some surprising things about wild lettuce, but I'm also going to bring another plant into the picture. And this is going to be one that you're going to be surprised about. I am almost certain. Unless you've been following me for a long time, you're like, come on, dude. Why don't you bring up stuff that we don't know about? And I could, I suppose. I do. I do bring it up. This is perfect. All right. This is going to be part of our wild lettuce talk we're about to have right now. I'm going to take everything up this way. So you'll have to be patient with me, and then I'll bring you up. I only have two hands and one body. I did a video about this a while back on TikTok, and I need to revisit it and do it again, but I have to wait until my wild lettuce gets a bit bigger. All right, so we talked about the wild lettuce. Here's the wild lettuce that we have in our driveway. It's considered a prickly lettuce. It's one version of it. I know you can see it right there, but I'm going to pull it up so you can see one better. These thorns look brutal. They are not. This is one version of wild lettuce. See how it's long and thin? You can see the lacticarium. It's coming out of the bottom of it. See it? Wild lettuce. Looks like this. Very bitter. The whole plant, this whole area here is just filled with them. Happened to be in our driveway this year. I'm going to assume that one of our other wild lettuces blew the wind over this way. You notice a similarity in the shape of this leaf? Let me show you something else. Sorry, I probably should have saved those. My bad. All right. So, here's wild lettuce. You see it? Here's the chicory. You see the chicory? Now, I know it has the spines on it, but look at the ends. And look at the veins. Here's a dandelion. Look at the ends and look at the veins. Dandelion, chicory, wild lettuce. All right. They're all the same. You can use them all identically. They all have lacticarium. They all have pain relieving properties. They're all pretty much the same. The wild lettuce is going to have a little bit more, but still, these are all the same. I'll show you something else. The one that I found on the property further back, which I'm going to keep alive and grow in a pot. This is also wild lettuce. Now, you see the thorns on this? These thorns are pseudo, well, you can kind of see them, maybe. Can you see the thorns? You can hear them, but they're not thorny, right? They're kind of thorny, but they're not bad thorny. There's something else I'm going to show you. This is sow thistle. Look at the shape of the leaf. Sow thistle. The thistles aren't really very thistly. I wouldn't be grabbing them like this if they were thistly. It looks thistly. See all this in there? Right? And the older they get, the sharper they get, but these aren't very old. Look at the shape of the leaf. This is sow thistle. Here's your wild lettuce. Sow thistle, wild lettuce, side by side. Look, look how much alike they look. Here's your dandelion. In with the others. Look at the dandelion and the wild lettuce. Look how similar they are in appearance. Notice the correlation? These are all related. These are all part of the same family. Here's the root of the sow thistle. Huh. That looks a lot like a dandelion root, right? This whole thing is edible too. It's edible. It's nutritious. You could eat the whole thing. Take the thin parts. If you don't want to eat the leaves, even though you can eat the leaves. This inner part here. See it? That part's edible. It's very sweet. It's nutritious. It's good. Nutritious. Anti-inflammatory. Kind of grassy, but, you know, can't have everything. So do you guys see the correlation? Found the wild lettuce in the driveway. Here's some wild lettuce. Here's some chicory. Well, that one's wild lettuce too, I should say. But they're both part of the same family. They're both wild lettuce. You can use them the same way. You can even use them interchangeably. Especially if you get both of them that are wild lettuce. These are both wild lettuce. But yeah, there's your secret to wild lettuce. There really isn't that big of a secret. They're all related. They're all part of the same family. I think you should spread the word. I think that's useful enough information that should be worth a share. You should probably share that with other people, because that was pretty useful. But that's all I have for tonight. It's 48 minutes in. For those of you who are patrons or whatever and you're following along, feel free to send me a message about what you thought tonight. But if you're just watching after it's been recorded, let me know what you think if you want some more content like this. Otherwise, you guys have a great night.